Hello guys and welcome to Creative Instruct. In today's episode we're gonna create this night scene illustration in Figma. Now this exercise has the purpose to touch base with components and instances, when we have objects that repeat themselves, and also with variants. Now, this composition is split into three parts. We have those buildings in the foreground, a couple of buildings in the midground, and then those which have less details in the background. Yeah, they're not so written. Okay, and in order to be able to follow along, I also went ahead and broken down the color scheme. Yeah, we're gonna do a bit of color management. I'm gonna show you how you can create your color styles in order to go a bit faster through this exercise because there are plenty of colors. So I specify them in the description down below. If you want to follow with the same exact colors as I do, if not, feel free to change them. And again, you can pause the video and take the colors from here. Although I think you're gonna find it easier to grab them from the description. Okay, now in order to add colors to my color library, let's say, I'm just gonna click on the sample. Yeah, so we need to do this little setup before we start. Clicking on this shape that has, for example, the building body color. Now I'm gonna go on the right side over here to fill, click the style button, and down here add, create style. Now I'm gonna give it a name and I'm gonna say building body. I'm gonna press enter to confirm, and now I have it just like that. I have it in my color palette. So when I'm gonna create a new shape, again, this is only for demo purposes. Let's imagine I'm creating a new shape and I need to quickly add fill, and I don't wanna play around with the color picker and waste time. So I'm just gonna go to my color styles library and select it from here. Yeah, you can also switch the way you visualize them to a grid. I rather have them as a list to also see the name. Then again, you can click and have that one selected, or you can click this edit style button in case you made some mistake or a typo when you name your color, and fix it from here. Okay, I'm gonna delete this, and uh, as I mentioned, do feel free to pause and grab the colors that you need. If you have multiple colors in your artboard, you can just click and drag over them, and you're gonna see down here that you're gonna have a selection of colors, and you can add them one by one, of course, from here. Just be aware of what names you're giving to them. They won't come in the exact order, that you have them in the frame. This is my base shade 2, so I'm gonna add it. Building base 2. Okay. Okay, you're gonna see that they already start to build up in your color styles. Moving on, I'm gonna add also the mid ground colors. Okay, so again, I'm gonna select them. And if your selection has more colors than you have the available space down here on the right, you're gonna have this option to see all. Just click on that one and it will expand. Okay, now for the background colors. Yeah, last on my list. And you notice that the more we advance, from the foreground to the midground to the background, we have less and less colors. Yeah, so we will want fewer details on the elements or on the graphic that appear farther from the viewer's eye. Okay, amazing job, guys. So we do have all of the colors. I know it's plenty, but then again, it's an illustration. So we want to be creative and we want to experiment. We don't want to limit ourselves. Okay, let's move on and start by creating a new frame. And this frame is gonna be of 1500 by 900 pixels. Yeah, the width and height. Give it a name. So let's call it scene. And over here on the right, let's go to layout grid and hit the add button, yeah, the plus, and go with the grid of 10 pixels, yeah, the default grid. Only this time I'm gonna change the color to neutral gray with the opacity of 10%. It's going to be easier for our eyes. Now let's zoom in and start by creating the street. So I'm going to take a simple rectangle, and this one is going to be 1500, so the full width, by 10 pixels. Okay, and I do want to position this at the very bottom, so I'm going to center it from up here, and I'm also gonna position it at the bottom, line bottom. Okay, give it a color of 1D, 1D, 1D. Press enter to confirm, and I'm gonna zoom in for you to see. Now I'm gonna duplicate, Control C, Control V, and I'm gonna move it up by 10 pixels. And over here, I'm gonna change the fill to 505050. Now we can simply group those two. I'm gonna hit Control G. You see I have a new group up here, and I'm gonna name this street. Yeah, just like that, I created the street. That was easy. Yeah, let's continue by making our first building. I'm gonna take a rectangle, and this one I'm gonna make it 250 by 490. Okay, this is gonna make the foreground like we said. Let's position it somewhere here for now. Add a fill color. Okay, and if you set up the colors already, just go to style and select. I'm gonna select the building body color. Okay, I also want to add a couple of strokes, so I'm gonna go to the stroke style, yeah, and I'm gonna select the building border. Now let's choose this option, strokes per side. Okay, because I want to customize it a bit. I want the stroke on the left, 10 pixels, and on the right, again, 10 pixels. I could also add a stroke at the top. Yeah, though at the top we're gonna have the roof, and I don't want any stroke on the bottom. Okay, let's continue by creating the highlights. And for this, I'm gonna choose a rectangle, and this has to be 80 pixels. So I'm gonna go with a width of 80 by 480. Okay, gonna be positioned on the left side. I'm gonna duplicate this one and move it on the right side. Now, do be careful not to overlap with the stroke. If you have it in, set it inside like I do. Let's select the first fill, and I'm gonna go with the building shade number 1. Now select the second fill and building shade number 2. Okay, at the bottom, I want to create the base, so I'm gonna duplicate first one and drag it down. So I'm gonna have it around 50 pixels height, and it's gonna be a building base shade 1. Then Alt or Option, click and drag and hold down Shift. Okay, we need to bring it in front, so right click, bring to front. This is gonna be the second base. Again, changing the color here. and I do have a solid frame for my building, I can continue by creating the windows. Let's start by going to the rectangle tool and the windows. There's nothing too complicated about them. You can go with the rectangle of 70 by 30, and let's add the colors to this one. So I'm going to add a fill. We'll have the window fill and the stroke, window stroke, okay? And I'm gonna duplicate this one, Control C, Control V, and make it 70 by 4. I'm gonna remove the stroke and the fill. Well, for the fill, let's go with the color of the stroke. Yeah, basically I want this bottom stroke to be taller. Of course, I could have done it with custom strokes, as you've seen before. Now, this would be the window, and I could continue and duplicate and create a number of windows that I need. But here's the catch. Yeah, here's a lesson. If my manager or the art director comes and tells me, hey, we need to change the color of all the windows, I would have to go through each of them, and modify the color to something else, because they're separate. And then I would have to right click, copy properties, move on the new ones, and paste the properties and so on. Now that's the old way of doing things. It's a bit inconvenient, especially when we have the power of components. So I'm going to create a component out of this window. And so I'm selecting it and I'm going to move it outside my composition somewhere here. And this is going to be like the master component, yeah, the parent component. So I'm selecting it, choosing right click and say create component, or I do have the shortcut Control Alt K, Command Option K, probably on Mac if you're on Mac. And this is going to be window 1, let's say. Yeah, I will give it a name. Now, whenever I will create other windows from the parent, in case I change the parent, the size of this one, or I change color in the parent, all of them get the update. Okay, that's really powerful, guys. So I do prefer working like that. And you can see the parent has this kind of icon, like these 4 diamonds, while the instances, the children that came from that component, have an empty diamond. So think of components as a factory. Maybe you're producing chairs or car parts or some kind of medicines. The component is basically the recipe, is the blueprint, the original, and everything that comes out of that component will follow the standards set by the original. Okay, good. We have those 2 windows. Let's bring them in our composition. So I'm gonna position them. Let's see, I'm gonna press Alt to see the red lines. So I do want them 40 pixels, yeah, from the left side, and 50 pixels from the top. And they should have a space of, let's see, 20 pixels besides, yeah, from one to each other. We don't want the windows to be that close. Now I'm gonna select both of them, hit Alt and Shift and drag. So I'm gonna drag like 20 pixels down, just like that. Now there's a nice trick you can do. If you follow exactly, you can just press Ctrl D, and this will duplicate with the same amount of space, yeah, with the same distance. So I do have now 2, 4, 6, 7, okay, 8 floors, and my windows are in place. Now there's another nice trick you can do. I'm gonna select everything, well, except shades and body, and I can adjust the spacing right from here, guys. I do have these nice controls in Figma that will increase and decrease the spacings when I'm working with elements that kind of look like a grid, yeah, make up a grid. So that's something nice for you to know when dealing with multiple elements at once. Let's create the balconies, and for the balcony again, I'm gonna create a component. Well, I'm gonna create the balcony body. This needs to be like 10 by 30. Duplicate the shape and rotate it. Bring it down here and make it 10 by 50. Okay, let's create a union, and this one just add a fill. I do have a balcony body fill, and I also have a stroke balcony, a body stroke. Okay, this is going to be the frame of the balcony, and the balcony also has that glass window. For that one, you can go with a 40 by 24 height and just bring it below the union, just like that. And we want to have it a bit inside, yeah, a bit indented. Yeah, I'm gonna add the fill again, the balcony glass fill, and the stroke, the balcony glass stroke. Okay, now let's create another component. So I'm gonna select both of them, right click and say create component, and this is gonna be balcony. Okay, I'm gonna zoom out, position my balcony somewhere out there. Now to bring a component, you can also go up here, hit this button and choose the component you want to use, yeah, to instantiate. That's how you would refer to this officially. We say we create several instances of that component, and we position it somewhere here. I do want a bit of space from the windows, but also I want the balcony to go slightly outside the frame of the building. I'm gonna duplicate this one, move it to the right, and right click to flip horizontal. And by selecting both of them, yeah, hold down Alt button, Shift, and bring it again 20 pixels down. Okay, continue by pressing Ctrl D, and there you have it. Okay, now we have the balconies. That was easy enough. Last point, let's make the rooftop. Okay, so I'm gonna create a rectangle. This one should be 50 by 30. I think that will work. I'm gonna position the first one somewhere here. Okay, now just duplicate it. And for you to better see what I'm doing here, I'm gonna select both of them and give them a fill. Okay, of course, this is gonna change. Let's create a union between them. So I need another shape that will overlap them slightly. So now by clicking Shift, holding down Shift and clicking them, I can create a union, and they're a single shape. I need a single shape because I'm gonna add a stroke, and otherwise I will see strokes, overlapping each other, and it won't make much sense. I do have it here. Let's add the fill first. Roof, body, and also let's add stroke. Roof, stroke. That starts to look much better. Okay, I also need the rooftop, so create a rooftop. This can be, I would say, 200 by 10. Okay, so maybe 210. Yeah, 210 by 10 pixels. This is the rooftop. So I'm gonna add a fill, again, roof top, and the stroke can be the same. Roof, so roof stroke. Now I do want them to overlap perfectly and create only one stroke, yeah, to look like they belong to the same unit. And in order to add a highlight to the rooftop, take your rectangle tool and, yeah, touch a bit on the edges. I would say if you go maybe 6 by 28 here, and And let's continue by rotating this one, okay, and expanding it. Don't worry, we're gonna add this as a single shape at the end. I just wanna trace the edges of the roof because adding a bit of detail, yeah, will give us that uh, feeling of depth, a feeling that this thing belongs together and it's not so plain, it's not so boring. Okay, guys, that's it. Okay, now let's continue by duplicating those. Control C, Control V, and move them to the right, flip them horizontal. This should be my highlight. I do want to make it in a single uh, shape, okay, and add a fill. Okay, roof highlight. It's a lighter gray. Okay, I do have this one which I missed. Okay, let's add again roof highlight. That's it about the first building. Well, slightly I could move those up. Uh, So I'm just gonna deselect them. Would want to move balconies slightly higher, bring back down the initial shape. Okay, those went a bit too high. Okay, let's continue by moving to the second building, yeah, the one that we have in the midground. I'm gonna take again the rectangle tool, and this time I'm gonna go with a 230 by 330, and this is gonna be the building. Okay, let's add the colors to it. So fill building 2, okay, the body, and then Control C, Control V to duplicate this one, and again bring it somewhere to 40, I would say. Uh, let's add the base color. So building 2 need the base. This is my base, and I also need bottom. Building 2 base bottom, which is pure black. Okay, let's continue by creating that door because this one has an entry door. Okay, so I'm gonna simply add a rectangle, and I want the rectangle to be centered. Well, 40 by 40. Let's see how this works. Okay, I'm gonna select both of them, center. I'm gonna go with a smaller rectangle, 30 by 40, and add a fill. And we need to add color to show that there's light inside this building. If you enter, okay, I'm gonna duplicate this, and I'm gonna create a door on the left. And for this one, again, select the color, entry door, body, same thing on the right. And let's imagine that it's one of those sliding doors, okay? And I need a bit of highlight, so 4 by 40, and add the highlight, and also continue with it to the right. I need to bring it front, right click, choose bring to front, and now make sure you overlay this perfect. Okay, so that's gonna be the entry door to this building. Okay, in terms of the stroke, we can add a simple stroke. I'm just gonna use the rectangle this time and overlay the stroke on building, just like that, on the left and on the right. So I'm creating the stroke as a fill. I'm gonna choose building 2, stroke 1. And then I have another stroke again, duplicate this rectangle, make it slightly smaller. I want to add a bit of detail, so I'm gonna go with a stroke 2, to illustrate that this building is Perfect. Move it to the right, bring it to the front, and lower it a bit. Okay, good. Let's add the rooftop, and I'm just gonna use that component. Oh, it seems I didn't transform the rooftop in a component. That would be great. Yeah, it would make my life easier because then I could just instantiate it. So I'm gonna duplicate this, right click and say create component, give it a name, rooftop, and let's do a bit of component management. I have them all here. I can group them, select all of them, and add them to a group and name the group art component. Okay. Now, when I'm on my building, I could simply try to instantiate rooftop. I get it over here and I overlay it on top of the building, and that looks quite good. No, not much else to do. Maybe add a shadow over here, so we can add a shadow that comes, yeah, right below the rooftop, something like this. And I do want my shadow to be perfectly aligned, nothing too complicated if we understand working with shapes and adding colors, changing colors. Basic operations, guys. I mean, you're gonna do these kind of things over and over again. Let's create the windows. And this is interesting because this type of window is gonna be slightly different. We're gonna have a window, a version of the window when the light is on, and a version of the window when the light is off. So I'm gonna pick the rectangle tool, make here like a 30 by 30 rectangle. Okay, now let's add to this rectangle fill, and I do have window to light on. Let's make the light on version, and it also has stroke, window to on, window to stroke light on, I called it. Okay, and I also want to add, let's see, at the base of the window, simple rectangle. Let's go 36 by 3, and this should overlay, yeah, the window exactly down here at the base, and try to center it. Okay, use your alignment tools if needed. Okay, let's add a darker color to this one. Okay, now let's create a component. Okay, I'm gonna select everything, right click and say create component. But I won't stop here. Yeah, after I create the component, I'm gonna go here to the component properties and click on the plus button. Okay, now choose variant, and I see that I can come back and click the plus button to add a variant. Okay, and the variant is basically that initial component in a different state. We use variants also for buttons in web design and mobile design to show different states that a button, for example, or an alert message can carry. Okay, so in this case, the variant, I'm gonna access that rectangle by double clicking. I'm gonna change the light on to light off, and also the border stroke. I'm gonna go with window to stroke light off. Yeah, so it looks a bit dim. Okay, what else? We can give them some proper name. So over here, instead of default, if I double click, I'll say light underscore on. Default doesn't tell me that much. So, and for the second, yeah, for the variant, I'm gonna double click and say lights off. Okay, and the component name, let's say window 2. That's great. Yeah, we can move it to the other components. Okay, and I'll move it outside of the composition again. I don't need to have it here. Normally you would manage your components in a separate artboard. So let's instantiate those windows. Okay. Oh, I don't have it inside. I need to put it inside the art components. Okay, so again, I'm just gonna create a couple of instances of the window 2, and the way we want to position them is in such a way that they align and they make sense. Yeah, so let's see, maybe a spacing of 12 among themselves. Then again, if you want to distribute them perfectly, make sure that the first and the last one have equal spacings from the margin of the building. Shift and select all of them, then go up here to distribute horizontal spacing. Yeah, we want them to be equally spaced out. And I'm gonna duplicate this, yeah, by holding down Alt, clicking, and holding down Shift. I would say a space of 20 in between is fine. And the nice part now is that I can select a couple of them and just change the variant to light off. Save a bit on the electricity bills. Or maybe they are out, yeah, the people are not home, they went somewhere, maybe in the city, they're out partying. And that's it. That's my second building. Okay, I'm gonna group everything and right click, send it to back. And sending it to back like that, I can position it slightly behind the initial building, which I have here. Having it group, yeah, I can easily move it around. Let's give it a name. And also let's group the first one. Of course, you could create an entire component out of this one. But for now, I'm just gonna group them building 1, building 2. Okay. Okay. Always keep in mind the layers. Yeah, do a bit of cleanup over there and layer management. Okay, last one is the background. And for this one, I'm gonna select a rectangle again. Let's go with 290 by 650. It's quite a tall one, if I remember correctly. Let's add a color to this one. So when you go to fill, building 3, okay, building 3 body as the color, and I can also add a stroke. Okay, okay, I can increase the stroke size. I just added a color. I can increase the stroke size if I want. I'm just gonna stick with 2 for now. I don't want stroke at the bottom, so again, I'm gonna make this one 0. Now, here's the thing. You know maybe that you can modify the radius, but it will change the radius everywhere. I do want to modify it only on the top right corner, so I can expand from here to modify the corners in an independent way. And you have the top left, top right, bottom right, and bottom left, so it goes clockwise. Let's add to the top right 100 radius. I want to give it an interesting look. Yeah, and then what is left? Adding the shade and the windows. Let's add the shade. Shade is gonna be just another rectangle, 40 by, let's see, I think 648, because we do have um, that stroke which we applied, so 648, because the stroke is 2 pixels and slightly inside, so 38 by 648 if you want to be precise. Okay, let's add a fill. Okay, building 3 shade. Okay, okay, now it's starting to look better. The windows. Well, for the windows, I'm just gonna use simple rectangles. Something like this, guys. 40 pixels, that's fine. And I want them a bit to the outside. Let's add a radius, say 6 pixels, add a fill to it, window free fill, and a stroke. Yeah, just add a stroke. No, I do have the stroke prepared. Building 3, let's see, stroke. Yep. And we want to create also a nice base. So I'm gonna duplicate this now. For the fill, I'm gonna go with the same color as the stroke. And it starts to look more interesting. And let's duplicate this and create a couple of variations, create a couple of window styles that would add a bit more interest. We're aiming here for speed, creativity, not for the exact results. So as long as you get something, yeah, that still looks like a building at the end of the day, I would say you're fine. Again, you don't have to make it exactly the way I do it. And also for me, this kind of exercise requires time. It's not something that just have the idea as soon as I open up Figma and start. Yeah, so let's select everything. Oh, I did forget something. The air system. Yeah, maybe the building has an evac system. Let's just add it here at the top. Select all of them. Add a fill. Fill can be uh, lighter and a stroke. Okay. Guess that will do it. I'm gonna group them, and now let's group everything together. Okay, Control G and send it to the back. And duplicate those buildings in the front. It's really nice, guys. Last touch, I need to select the entire scene and add a fill to the frame. Yeah, let's add the sky. I call it sky 1, and we can also add the moon, which is basically a circle. Take the ellipse tool, click, drag, and hold down shift, say somewhere around 400 400 pixels by 400 pixels will do it. Add to this one the fill. So I do have a moon fill, and add also the stroke, moon stroke. And the stroke, make it 20 pixels. Okay, send it to the back, right click, send to back. We want this to appear like behind buildings. And if you want to, again, take it one step further, you can create different shade for the sky. So I'm just gonna take the pen tool. Yeah, again, guys, exercise with those because not always easy. So click, drag, and let's just try to create some interesting shape here for the sky. Of course, you can go in and fine tune those small details and also add some life to it. Yeah, some trees if you want. Okay, that's all for today. I hope you enjoy this tutorial, and we're gonna see each other in the next one to continue with components, UI elements, design. Yeah, have a good one.